In an age of career ladders, self-actualization rhetoric, and constant messaging that women must have it all, a quieter truth persists. Most women would be happier with a simpler life. Many do not fully know what they want, pulled in conflicting directions by biology, culture, and ideology. Yet evidence and lived experience point to a deeper source of female contentment: voluntary submission to a loving husband. A woman who submits does so not from fear or coercion, but from profound love. Because she loves her husband so much, she willingly gives him her body and bears him children to raise together. This is not regression. It is alignment with natural design, emotional reality, and the ingredients that have sustained human families for millennia. The modern happiness paradox underscores the first claim. Despite unprecedented gains in education, legal equality, workforce participation, and reproductive freedom, women's self-reported happiness in the United States and other developed nations has stagnated or declined relative to men's since the 1970s. The very expansions meant to liberate women have instead layered on stress. The double shift of paid work plus primary responsibility for home and children, the erosion of clear roles, and the postponement of marriage and motherhood until fertility windows narrow. A simpler life, centered on home, husband, and children, removes much of this friction. It trades the exhausting pursuit of status and autonomy for the tangible rewards of domestic order, intimate partnership, and the irreplaceable bond of motherhood. Women who choose this path often report higher life satisfaction precisely because it matches what evolutionary psychology and cross-cultural data suggest is wired into female psychology: the drive to nurture, connect, and create security rather than compete in masculine hierarchies. A significant number of women genuinely struggle to articulate what they want because contemporary culture actively discourages them from listening to their own deeper longings. Feminism and media celebrate the independent, child-free, high-earning woman as the ideal, while quietly downplaying the loneliness, anxiety, and sense of emptiness many experience in that script. Biological realities: oxytocin-driven bonding during sex and childbirth, the intense maternal instinct that surges after pregnancy, do not vanish because ideology says they should. When women delay family formation to chase credentials and promotions, they often reach their 30s facing a painful mismatch between what they were told would fulfill them and what actually does. Submission to a worthy husband resolves this confusion. It provides a clear decision-making hierarchy, emotional safety, and the freedom to specialize in the roles women historically excelled at and found meaning within. Submission itself is the linchpin. When a woman submits to her husband, she is not surrendering her dignity or becoming a doormat. She is choosing to trust and elevate the man she has selected as her protector and leader. The distinction between submission born of love versus fear is crucial. Fear-based control is tyranny and produces misery. Love-based submission is a beautiful voluntary gift. A woman who loves her husband deeply wants to please him. She offers her body freely, not as an obligation but as an act of intimacy and trust. In the marital bed, she finds pleasure and closeness that no casual encounter can replicate. She gives him children because she trusts his character to raise them well, and because she recognizes that bearing and nurturing life is one of the most profound expressions of her femininity. In return, a good husband practices sacrificial leadership. He cherishes her, provides, protects, and makes decisions with her well-being and the family's future in mind. This complementarity creates harmony, not hierarchy for hierarchy's sake. Critics argue that such roles trap women or ignore individual variation. Some women genuinely thrive in high-powered careers and egalitarian partnerships. No one should force them into traditional molds. Yet the data consistently shows that conservative and religious women, who are far more likely to embrace marriage, motherhood, and complementary roles, report significantly higher happiness and life satisfaction than their secular progressive counterparts. Traditional marriages, when functioning as intended, also correlate with greater sexual frequency and satisfaction, lower divorce rates in certain cohorts, and better outcomes for children. The happiest arrangement is rarely the one sold by glossy magazines. It is the one where a woman feels secure enough to surrender control and a man feels respected enough to lead with love. Ultimately, the statement is not a command for every woman, but an observation about what brings most women lasting joy. A simpler life does not mean intellectual stagnation. It can include creativity, community, and personal growth within the context of family. Submission out of love is not weakness, it is strength channeled into the most intimate human relationship. When a woman gives her husband her body and bears his children, she is not diminishing herself, she is completing the circle of love, trust, and legacy. In a noisy world that tells women they must rebel against their own nature to be happy, perhaps the radical choice is the oldest one: to love deeply, submit willingly, and find peace in the arms of a good man and the laughter of the children they raise together. For many women, that is not sacrifice, that is home. In marriages built on voluntary submission and deep mutual trust, discipline sometimes takes a physical form. Sometimes a good husband has to spank his wife, and the wife agrees, because she understands it as an act of love, leadership, and accountability rather than anger or domination. This is not abuse. It is a consensual practice within certain traditional and complementarian households where both spouses have openly discussed and agreed upon domestic discipline as part of their marital covenant. The wife submits not out of fear, but out of profound respect and love for her husband's headship. She recognizes her own imperfections, moments of disrespect, stubbornness, or emotional impulsivity, and trusts her husband to provide the firm, measured correction she has asked for. The spanking serves as a reset, a tangible reminder of roles, boundaries, and the safety of his leadership. Afterward, reconciliation is swift, forgiveness flows freely, and the marriage feels stronger, more intimate, and more ordered. Critics immediately label this outdated or abusive, but they miss the key distinction: enthusiastic consent. The wife is an adult who has freely chosen this dynamic because it brings her peace. Many women in such marriages report that knowing there are clear consequences for crossing agreed lines reduces anxiety and conflict. It prevents the slow buildup of resentment that plagues many modern egalitarian relationships. Instead of endless arguments or passive-aggressive silence, there is structure, humility, and restoration. The husband, for his part, must act with self-control, proportionality, and sacrificial love, never in rage, never to humiliate, and always with the wife's prior agreement and ongoing consent. This practice echoes older understandings of marriage in which the husband's loving authority included the responsibility to guide and correct, much like a father gently disciplines a beloved child. For couples who embrace biblical complementarianism or traditional gender roles, it can be one expression of the wife's willing submission and the husband's protective leadership. It is not for every marriage, nor should it ever be imposed. But for those who mutually choose it, consensual spanking can be a private, effective tool for maintaining harmony in a simpler, role-defined life. Ultimately, when a wife agrees to this form of discipline, she is not surrendering her dignity. She is affirming her trust in the man she chose to follow. And when a good husband administers it fairly and lovingly, he is fulfilling his calling to lead, protect, and cherish. In such homes, discipline becomes another language of love,